Hello and welcome into our first debut episode of the NBA Roundup podcast. So, for those who have listened to our NFL podcast, it's myself, Shane Stanley, joined by John Hepso, and we have a new addition to the team, Gudmund Hepso, John's younger brother.
That's me.
So, we're going to get into the play-in scenarios starting off today and look at some of the award predictions that we have and get into the messy Lakers this year. So, what do you guys think about where we're sitting right now heading into the playoffs?
I think Western Conference it's set in stone right now. We got the Clippers going to Minnesota, and we got Spurs going to the Pelicans. Two decent matchups. I mean, probably irrelevant teams. But as for the Clippers, I got them beating Minnesota. And Minnesota having to drop it and play the loser, or the winner of the second game. Let's see now. So, as for the Clippers over Minnesota, I did a ranking of 7 different stats, and it's like points per game, field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, blocks, steals, opponents' points per game, and opponent field goal percentage throughout the season, right? And the Clippers won 4-3 in those categories. So I'm going to pick Clippers. They seem like a deeper team with, Paul George coming back. It's a big move. So I'm going to take the Clippers there. And as for the Spurs and the Pelicans, in my patented scoring table, the Spurs actually win 5-2 in all of those categories.
Wow.
Now, this is all season long. It's not, if they had CJ McCollum on the Pelicans for the whole season, it probably would have changed something, right? But as for this, I'm going to take the Pelicans. And then I guess we'll get into... Do we say who we're going to pick in the following game?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
And I would take the Clippers as well. So that would eliminate the Spurs and... Minnesota. Minnesota versus New Orleans then, right?
Yes. So
I'd take New Orleans.
So you would have... so Pelicans would be the 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clippers beat 7.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we'll stick with the Western Conference, and then we'll make our way to the East.
Yeah, sure.
Good.
So I actually have the same picks. I'm taking LA over Minnesota. So LA's matched up with Minnesota 4 times this season and only had Paul George for 3 of those games. And in those games, they went 3-0. And they lost 1 game against the T-Wolves at home with Paul George. So I think he makes a big difference here.
That is wild.
Yeah. So I know the regular season matchups, they are like, for what they're worth. I mean,
I find them very, they're kind of, the value of regular season games are diminishing as we go forward.
Oh, definitely.
Just because of injuries and people sitting.
I think it matters when they were played too. If they're
right.
2 games back in October don't mean the same as 2 last week.
Exactly. I think there's another big thing here is that I know Karl Anthony Towns, he wasn't playing great at the start of the season, but he's really turned it on in the second half. So that could be something to look for as well. He seems like he's been playing with a chip on his shoulder. So I don't know. I think this is going to be a very close matchup, but I think I give the edge to the Clippers there.
Great defensive team.
Yeah.
They're probably going to shut down
and
everybody.
they're one of the best 3-point shooting teams in the league as well.
Right.
So that also helps. For the Spurs and Pelicans, I also think this is a pretty close matchup. You get a very young team in the San Antonio Spurs playing the Pelicans, but I feel like the Pelicans, they just have more experience in the playoffs and stuff. I know San Antonio has Greg Popovich, and these young guys probably will be ready.
He's not out there playing.
But exactly, that's the thing, right?
You can only do so much.
And with them adding CJ McCollum, I think he brings with his talent, somebody who can hit shots down the stretch, as well as Brandon Ingram. I just feel like I'd have to give the edge to them. And if I had to pick between the T-Wolves and the Pelicans, I'd say I'm going to take the Timberwolves.
Okay.
I don't think they'll lose 2 at home.
So you got LA and the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Switching
spots. Yeah.
Switching spots.
Yeah. I actually have the same. I have
No adversity here on this podcast.
No. I mean, I just feel like the playoffs become like a superstar-driven Like,
agree.
that's really like one or two players can really take over a series, and this is a 1-game scenario, so you really don't have to take over a whole series. Just
And
one
is
game.
there a possibility Zion comes back?
I think he's.
I haven't even considered that, but
I think he's shut down.
it's definitely possible.
You see the dunk that he had? He
Yeah.
just posted
Yeah.
a video,
Yeah.
and he goes from like just by the free throw line, through his legs, slams it.
It was
thing
crazy
is-
how. Or were you gonna say, sorry?
No, I was just gonna say like were they shutting him down because they probably thought they had no shot,
Yeah. That's
and
true
then
too.
now they do, and now they're like, okay, let's reevaluate where he is. You know.
Yeah.
I think they should. I think that would be a phenomenal ad for them, and they could make some noise in that conference. You know?
Sure. I mean, like, it depends if you look at it like, well, if they're like the 8, for example, like, if we don't have much shot against Phoenix, isn't much, like, shut them down, keep them healthy. Maybe we'll make some moves this offseason, and then maybe next year to the 5 or the 6, and then we can really make some noise.
Yeah, that's right.
So looking at the Clipper versus Minnesota matchup, the T-Wolves statistically are better on offense in terms of points per game. Their offense average is 8 more points a game rather than the Clippers. Of course, this is without Paul George for a large chunk of the year.
T-Wolves actually scored the most points per game in the whole league.
Yeah, so they're really kind of a high-flying offense to a certain aspect, but their defense also gives up 5 more points per game. Obviously, the Clippers are pretty good on defense.
Yep.
The Clippers are playing pretty well coming down the stretch here. They won their last 4 games now to close out the year. We'll see what they do today. Just a quick note too. This is we're taping this on Sunday morning, so these games there's still might be some movement. These matchups are locked in, but there is a last game today, so we're not fully completed the regular season. But
Yeah,
we're
the
going
the Eastern Conference matchups can
the
change.
East can change today, yes. But for the time being, the Clippers are hot now to close out the year, so I do think they win this game. Superstars, Paul George specifically, should take over. I fully expect them to win this game. So looking at the 9-10, I got the Pelicans over the Spurs as well. I think this could be close. I think they do have enough solid players around that can really take over the game. Ingram, obviously, CJ. Valanciunas is always solid, consistent.
Great player.
Steady piece to have as your third. And I really like what Jackson Hayes did this year too. This as a complimentary fourth piece, young player. Might be a bit of jitters, I guess, being in the playoffs for the first time, but I think they've got enough of that core and experienced players around him to help them win that game.
And especially his position on the team. Fourth.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not
He's
like DeJounte Murray,
not
who's
expected.
the number one option, right?
Absolutely. So I think looking at the 8 seed then, you'd have the Timberwolves versus the Pelicans. Like Gudmund said, I think it's hard to have Minnesota losing twice at home. I just expect Cat to just go off on this game. I feel like he can have just a huge impact. Edwards, Russell, Beasley, all around him to make those secondary shots, and then Patrick Beverly is just crazy on defense. He's just a crazy man. So.
He might give you 5 points, but he might give you 7 steals.
Absolutely. So he's just like a little spark plug that can really help them. So for my playoff right now in the West, I'll have the Clippers in 7 and T-Wolves in 8. So
And Gudmund has the
they'll
same,
swap.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
And I got the Clippers at 7 and the Pelicans at 8.
All right, so we'll shift over to the East. John, I'll let you lead the way with that.
Okay, so kind of got a weird situation here. The Brooklyn Nets hold the tiebreaker over the Hawks and the Cavs. The Cavaliers hold no tiebreakers. Atlanta holds the tiebreaker over the Cavs. And Charlotte holds the tiebreaker over all of them.
And they're all within one game, correct? Like
Yep.
all
So
of them.
if Cleveland loses and Brooklyn loses and Charlotte wins, they jump to the 7. Everybody else is bumped down.
Wow.
But
crazy.
with the current matchups, I guess we'll just go with that right now.
Yeah.
So we got Cleveland and Brooklyn. Brooklyn being 7 seed, Cleveland being 8. This is the first playing game. Out of my 7 categories, I got the Nets lead 6-1.
Yeah.
The Cavs, the only thing that they're better in is points allowed, which they're 4th overall, and the Nets are 19th.
And they're probably not playing a high-powered offense as Brooklyn.
Yeah, exactly.
So it might.
Brooklyn,
be
I
something
find
like that.
very hard to evaluate because they haven't had Kyrie for half the year. They had James Harden, but he just started playing his way out of town and doing nothing. Same thing he did with the Rockets, really, to get to Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's a whole nother thing. He's really getting on my nerves.
So how do you even... And do they get Ben Simmons? You know, it's so up in the air. But
That's really-
regardless, I'm going to take them in this game.
That's really the wild card if they go far.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
I don't expect them to play in the wild card or probably even the first round the way it's looking. But, like, if they go to East Finals, for example, like, will he play in potentially?
I heard they shut him down for the year, but I don't know, because obviously if they get to the conference finals and then, get to the finals, then, what are the chances
They'll
he
probably
doesn't come back
put
then?
some pressure on him at some
Yeah.
point, too, to, like, okay, listen, why do we even trade for you if you're going to be
exactly.
doing this?
Yeah, if their defense turns out to be shit in, like, the semis or something.
Yeah.
The conference semis. And it's like, if we only had that 7-footer at point guard, like, would certainly help. But either way, I'm going to take Brooklyn in this game. So that drops Cleveland out to play the winner of the 9-10 game. And in the 9-10 game, I think this is very close. I think it's Trae Young versus LaMelo Ball. And with the recent highlights from LaMelo Ball, he kind of reminds me of Magic. Like, the way he's doing all these crazy passes and, like, it's impressive stuff.
He's fun to watch. Man.
He is very fun.
I love watching him play.
Charlotte leads my scoring 4-3. But their defense is not great. 27th overall in the league. And the Hawks aren't much better. They're 21st.
Yeah.
And they're both high-scoring offenses. I'm just going to give it to Atlanta.
Yeah.
I feel like they can pull it off. Trae Young needs one big game to get him into a potential win and you're in, right? So, I got Atlanta here, and Atlanta plays the Cavs. I think they can beat the Cavs, just the Cavs are too young. They're led by Evan Mobley, the rookie. He's a great defensive player, and he scores about 15 points a game. He's been solid for them all year.
Yeah.
But I just don't think it's their time. It's their first time around coming even close to the playoffs in years.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take Atlanta. That puts Brooklyn in 7 and Atlanta in 8.
Yeah, I actually have the exact same outcome. At least for the Brooklyn Nets Cleveland game, I think it's pretty simple for me. I just kind of think that the veteran leadership of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, versus this young team, I just feel like it's kind of a no-brainer. If Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving can't bring home one game at home against the Cleveland Cavaliers, I just, I wouldn't have much faith in them winning the next game.
At home, especially.
At home, so that one I think is pretty easy. The Cavs have dealt with some injuries this season too, because they were playing really well. They were up at they were the 4 seed for a while, and they've just been slowly dropping off due to injuries. And sad, because it would have been nice to see them up in the 5 and actually be into the playoffs. Now they're getting put in this position where they're dropping down and they could miss the playoffs because of it. It's pretty sad, but nobody wants to be matched up with the Nets, and there's a reason for that. And their names are KD and Kyrie Irving. So yeah, I'm taking Brooklyn Nets in that series. For Charlotte and Atlanta, I think this is probably going to be the best game in the play-in.
I agree, because it's high-flying offense and no defense.
Exactly. And like I said, I love LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges. They got Terry Rozier, all these great young players. And I just feel like, because of Atlanta's experience, they got Trae Young, Clint Capella, those guys. They made it to the conference finals last year. Trae had some unbelievable games versus the Knicks. And it always seems like when he needs to come through, he generally does. If it's an even matchup, he generally will come through. And I think if you give him one game at home, he'll manage to take it.
He can pull it off.
So
I agree.
I got Atlanta over Charlotte. I feel like they'll be better in the coming years for sure. They'll start making playoff pushes, but for now, I think you have to give it to Atlanta. And then, of course, Atlanta versus Cleveland. I think the same kind of thing where it's that young talent versus, a bit of experience. And like you said, it's almost the same situation. I just give Trae Young the benefit of the doubt.
Another thing
he'll be the best player on the court.
Another thing with Cleveland is they don't have an elite perimeter scorer.
Right.
No.
And that's something that almost all the great teams in the league have. Milwaukee with Drew Holiday, Steph and Clay, KD and Kyrie. It's littered across the league with these kind of
I
players.
just don't know where their success came from. like
neither,
when
Bigs.
they were up, third or fourth place. Like
Yeah.
I don't really know what. I know the East has been so close all year. Like to go from the third to the seventh probably wasn't as big of a drop off as what it looks on paper. But like when they were up high, I was like I wasn't watching a whole lot of basketball early in the season with NFL going, but like I was like, man, Cleveland's in third. like what is
Shocked.
why? Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think Jared Allen is still injured. Or is he coming back?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
And then Colin Sexton's injured.
Would he even start now? Because Mobley is playing center, correct?
Yeah, I don't know with them. They've drafted 3 centers
They have so
in
many,
3 years.
so many big centers. Yeah.
Like, why would you do that?
You'll probably see a trade in the offseason, I would say.
Yeah.
Have to.
They have to be, yeah.
All right, what about your picture?
Well, again, to stay for the course, I got pretty much the same. So looking at Brooklyn first, I feel like Cleveland at this point, especially with the way they've kind of faded down the stretch, 2-8 in their last 10. So they really, I think that obviously was the stretch that really dropped them where they are. I think they got kind of that happy to be here mentality now at this point, and I mean, obviously we talk about what a powerhouse Brooklyn is. I mean, I think all of us have fairly high expectations for them, how deep they'll go this year. So, I mean, one game, Brooklyn's at home now as it stands. If they win today, they will be. So I'm liking them to be the home team here in this matchup. Way too good, too overpowering. They're at home again for this game when we didn't necessarily think they would be maybe a couple games ago because they were kind of bouncing back and forth between the 8 and the 10. So now between this whole 4-team mini tournament, they do have the home court. So they should, by all indication, be in the playoffs. I do expect them to get there through this game. So looking over to Atlanta, I do have Atlanta over Charlotte. Atlanta, again, is the home team. I do like Charlotte's core. I think the pieces are in place, as you said, with Terry and Miles Bridges and
Scary Terry.
Yeah, Scary Terry. Yeah. So I feel like they definitely do have some pieces in place. Ball is incredible.
Yeah.
They do still have a bit of that young, again, happy to be here. It's kind of nice to be in the playoff. Some experience here would be nice. It would be nice to see him get to the first round, although I don't expect him to really do a whole lot. So, I mean, Atlanta coming off that run, too, they do have that experience.
Yeah.
And coming off a run last year, a lot of these pieces are there. The key to this game for me is, not Trae Young versus Ball, as you said. I think it's the external shooters of Atlanta. Your Herders, Gallinari.
Yeah, that's right.
You really got to get all those pieces around Trae Young because I think Trae and Ball are going to get theirs. It's everybody else.
Yeah.
So I will give Atlanta the edge and assume that they do show up for this game. So that would put Atlanta versus Cleveland to get in for the 8th seed. I do have Atlanta over Cleveland. I do see a bigger game for Trae Young, and this is potentially a mild upset, I guess, on paper if you kind of look at it with the seeding. Cleveland again was pretty high to start the year. Most of the season they were up kind of in that mid-tier range. Atlanta was kind of down towards the bottom. I don't think they were ever really kind of a disappointment after last year, the run they made. They were never super high up in the standings. So I feel like this is kind of a mild upset, although again they do have the experience factor. That plays in. Trae, obviously, just a baller, especially in the playoffs. Seems like he really comes out of them more and more in the big game spots. So I'll take Atlanta over Cleveland. Atlanta, again, played good down the stretch, 7-3, versus Cleveland's 2-8 in their last 10. So I'll take Atlanta. So I got Brooklyn in the 8, Brooklyn in 7, pardon me, and Atlanta in the 8 to round out the East.
And we all got the same thing, right?
Yeah. So something we wanted to talk about with the play-in, do we like the play-in rule? Do we kind of like where it's been?
So I guess the question for our audience would be, what is the play-in tournament, and do we agree with it? So the play-in tournament, it takes away the top 8 make the playoffs thing that we've been dealing with for years and years and years and years.
Right.
And it incorporates the 9 and 10 seed. So the 7 seed and the 8 seed, Brooklyn and Cleveland right now, they play, and whoever wins gets a 7 seed. So we'll just say Brooklyn wins, they get 7. Cleveland drops out and plays the winner of the 9 and 10 game to see who gets the 8th spot. So this is essentially a new thing that the league came up with after the bubble year, because COVID came and shafted everything, and all the teams had 30, 25 games left, and it wasn't fair at the time to say, okay, the top 8 make it, because who knows, 10 could have made a run to get to 8,
Right. Yeah.
and so on, right? So I thought it was great there, but curious to hear what your thoughts are on it. Good.
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of indifferent, but I feel like I'm leaning more towards not being a fan of it. Just mainly because I just think about it in the sense of, like, if you look at Cleveland, say if they were the 7th seed and they had some injuries down the stretch, they get bumped down to the 7th seed, and then all of a sudden they lose one game. Now they're the 8, and then they lose again, and now they're put out of the playoffs in 2 games. You should win those games because you do have home court advantage, and I do realize it works both ways. Like, I know you had mentioned to me, John, how the Lakers being injured all season, it gives them a second chance when they're fully healthy, if they get fully healthy at the end of the year, to get back into the playoffs. So it's the great teams don't get put out, and the worst teams, that shouldn't be in there anyways,
Right.
don't get in.
Yeah.
It kind of works both ways.
It is sad for a team like Cleveland, who's worked so hard to get into a playoff position,
And then
and then could drop out.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's on them.
it is, yeah.
It is, and like it's set up in a way where like you do still have a slight advantage with like they do reward you for being 7 rather than 10. Like it's not
right.
all an even playing field. Like it's a single win and you're in, whereas like the 9 and 10, like it gives them an opportunity, but they got to work for it. They got to win 2 games on the road.
2 solid teams.
Yeah, against teams that are on paper better than you in standing. So, I mean, it really is set up fairly, I think.
So what do you think? Do you agree with it, or?
I definitely lean towards liking it. Like, I mean, it definitely, like, that was a good point that it really gives, like, better teams an extra chance if they ran into some injuries or something came up. It really does suck if, like, a Laker or a Brooklyn was a 9 and then they just miss out just by happenstance. Like, that it does say, okay, you can play your way and earn your way in. And I find, too, like, we're not seeing a huge discrepancy, like maybe a little bit with the Timberwolves compared to like the other records. Like I think the T-Wolves were like 46 and 36 or whatever the record was. Like, and whereas like the Pelicans are like 34 and whatever. So there is a bit of a discrepancy. So like you're not seeing like a really really good team play a really really bad team. For the most part, it's pretty even teams. Like
shitheads in the middle of the conference.
Well, that's kind of the thing too. Like if it was like just 4 garbage teams that nobody cared about, I would be more against it. But we're seeing like a Brooklyn and a Laker team that didn't make it this time, but like they were certainly in it for a long time and were there until a couple games ago.
And that is one thing about it as well. This is one part that I do like is it keeps everything more competitive down the stretch. And, there's less teams resting, and, it just adds an extra element to the end of the season.
Yep.
And, that's one thing for sure that is definitely good about it.
I find it's like an appetizer.
It is, yeah.
Like I always liked, they do this too with the March Madness. Like they do, I think it's like the 11 seed versus the 6 or something. You know how they keep those 4 teams kind of out in each region?
Right.
And then they play like a 4-team tournament to see who's getting in those last 2 spots. It's kind of like that. They're not in the tournament per se, but it's kind of like a pre-tournament to see who gets in, and then once they're into the main bracket, then we can start playing. So it is an element that's been in basketball like that, and I think that's might be even where it came from, the idea. But overall, I think it's more positive than negative. It's just it's more exciting basketball. Why not? Again, if we do this for another 5-6 years, and it's just horrible teams playing horrible teams, I might change my tune. But as of right now, we're seeing pretty good teams play.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have no issue with it. I'm not gonna fight seeing Brooklyn fight for their lives. I think that's fun.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I'm just kind of indifferent with it. I don't really lean either way. I can see from both sides. So
yeah. Ultimately, I agree with it 100%. Just because. You look at the Clippers, they lost Kawhi and Paul George. The Lakers, they lost AD for a bit of the season, LeBron for a bit of the season. Westbrook was healthy the whole time, but they're just dealing with major injuries. In Brooklyn, they had James Harden in and out, and then Kevin Durant missed a bunch of games, and Kyrie's missing every second game. And in the playoffs, you want to see the best players go at it. And to be stripped of that just because of injuries is terrible. That would be the worst, right? Would you rather see Cleveland make the playoffs or Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving?
Cleveland.
Everybody wants to see the best players go at it.
Yeah.
And we would have been stripped of that without this rule this year. And unfortunately, the Lakers couldn't pull it out. That shit show. But why don't we get into that now? Why the Lakers? Or what was the segment?
Well,
percentage
we just
of
kind of
blame?
wanted to go around and divvy up a percentage of blame as to why we think the Laker team turned out the way they did this year. I mean, they were the favorites to come out of the West.
They were favorites to win the title.
Preseason. Yeah, so, I mean, obviously it looked like they had a super team, like we were talking about with the Patriots on the NFL Roundup. Like, yeah, this is a great team from, 2015. If you take all these guys, but it was
Hall of
really,
Famers.
Yeah, it was really just like an all-star team of yesteryear, and here we are now of this aging roster, and we'll kind of go around and that's obviously a big factor for me. It's just like the aging core of their team and how they kind of opted to go older rather than younger.
Right.
But I'll let John kick that off and how he sees it went wrong.
So for me, as it goes for the percentage of blame for the reason the Lakers missed the play-in game, or the play-in round, I got LeBron James, Rob Pelinka, and Jeannie Buss as GMs. They take the majority of the blame, 51%. Frank Vogel, 20%.
Interesting percentage.
Well, just that they get the majority.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
The GMs,
Fair enough.
the front office, right? Frank Vogel, 20%. He didn't trust his instincts at any point in the season. When he should have put Westbrook on the bench opposite of LeBron James, so they're not on the court conflicting with each other. There were so many reports that he was going to do this, going to try it. And then the media backlash of how would Westbrook react and Westbrook's press conferences and all this. And Vogel was just too passive in that role of head coach. So he couldn't find a way to make it work. I give him 20% of the blame. LeBron as a player, 15%. The self-proclaimed GOAT, which I don't agree with. Basically, if you're the GOAT, the greatest of all time, it shouldn't matter who's on your team. You should at least be the 10 seed. Okay, if you're the GOAT, get your team to the 10 seed in the Western Conference. Like, what a joke. Okay? It's, it just drives me nuts. Anthony Davis as a player came into training camp out of shape, constantly injured all the time. And the stat that jumps out to me, Anthony Davis this year, 18% from three.
He's worst in the league, I believe.
It's worse than the entire league, man.
As a percentage. Yeah, that's
give
awful.
me a break. So he gets 10%. And Westbrook, to finish off, he gets 4% of the blame. Okay? Look.
I love these percentages.
He shares the smallest portion of the blame for me because he just came and played the exact same way that he's been playing his entire career.
That's fair.
All out. Full effort. No matter what. And he doesn't leave the fans thinking he could have given more in the game. You know,
they definitely think that, though.
well, as in, okay, turnover here, but it's if you look back at his highlights from OKC, it's the exact
but
same
that was
player.
that was naive of them to think that he could change his stock.
That's why the GMs get most of the blame, right?
Fair enough.
Instead of because they could have got DeMar DeRozan, they could have signed him
Which
and
looks
traded for Buddy Hield
terrible now with DeRozan
Yes.
having the season he had.
and Buddy Hield.
Yeah.
He's
Also,
one of the top shooters.
A
3-point.
lesser version of DeMar, but still, obviously would have been an upgrade, I think.
No, they could have got DeMar DeRozan, free agency, and traded for Buddy Hield.
Oh, Jesus, if they got both.
So they could have got both, but instead, I don't know if LeBron overrided it or not, but I lump him in with the GMs because they sure as hell called him. Everybody knew what type of player Westbrook was going to be.
Yeah.
They should have known. There's been 14 years of tape to figure it out. So that's how I break it down.
Yeah, I think you pretty well hit the nail on the head. It definitely starts with the front office. That decision to take Russell Westbrook on. They let Caruso go. There's just all of their shooters gone.
And
You know what I mean?
defenders.
And defense.
And defenders. I don't know. It's a very poorly constructed old roster that, could hardly be expected to win anything. And somehow, yet we're still the favorites at the start of the season. I don't know. When we look back on it now, I mean, it seems silly, but I guess at the time, you never know. You put Russell Westbrook, Anthony Davis, and LeBron James together, you figure that, they can make something happen.
3 All-NBA players.
Yeah. But yeah, like you said, that Buddy Hield trade, I mean, that's a big miss there. Not signing DeRozan. Even if you didn't think that DeRozan was going to be this, 26 point per game player, hitting all these clutch shots and the mid-range game and everything, he can still give you 20 points a game, and be efficient, and he would still be a great player.
Too.
And yeah, he can play off the ball. So really the front office is just, it's tough that they, had listened to LeBron, because I know, at least for the Westbrook, Buddy Hield situation, he did, kind of cast his vote for Westbrook. And it's kind of surprising, because, that's not really something that I could see LeBron doing in the past, because, he's always kind of, looked to get shooters and stuff, and, not really take on a player of that role. But, so the front office for sure. I do think Russell Westbrook has to take a portion of the blame.
What percentage would you go?
I don't know, maybe 15, I would say. Just because of his attitude throughout the season. He was playing absolutely horrible. Having 7, 8 turnovers in a game, shooting 30% from the field. And he still get almost 10 assists, but if your plus minus turnover to assist ratio is 2, not even.
1.5, 1.8.
Yeah. And
he's been the same player.
But he's been the same player. But he just comes to the media, and every time he does these post game press conferences, he just says the same thing, and it's basically just don't worry about what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep playing the way I play. We're just trying to win games. And he's just when they talk about championships and stuff, he just says, well, I'm not really looking for a championship at this point in my career. All this stuff is just you realize where you're playing, man? You're playing for the Lakers.
It doesn't match up with what the Lakers are trying to do.
And you're playing with LeBron James.
Yeah, the culture.
LeBron James is trying to become the best player to ever play basketball. And to do that, he needs to win at least another championship. Get there again.
He's ring chasing right now.
He's ring chasing, and you know that coming in. So
yeah.
Your ultimate goal has to also be a championship, because that is LeBron's goal. That is Anthony Davis's goal. I mean, it seemed to be. I don't know.
You got to get on his level. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You got to bring yourself to that, and that's kind of the biggest thing for me. Injuries, another big portion of that as well. They did deal with injuries with Anthony Davis, LeBron James. But, come on. You couldn't even get into the 10 seed. So I give that, a smaller portion. But, you should have made the 10 seed. I don't really think that's a great excuse. And I hate how Anthony Davis uses that every time. Because he played 40-odd games. And you tell me you couldn't win,
over half of them?
Well, that's all they would have to do.
And then LeBron couldn't win, another 15 to... games on his own, so it's just, I don't know.
They were losing to junk teams.
OKC, they blew a 26-point lead against Oklahoma City, and then blew an 18-point lead, roughly, again.
I love it watching Shannon and Skip go at it, and Shannon's they blew a 26-point lead, 24-point lead, 22-point lead, 19-point lead, 18-point lead. It just keeps on going, right? Yeah. Oh my God, it's amazing.
They would routinely give up 70 points in a half.
That's crazy.
That is just ungodly numbers. You can't pace the other team to 140 points.
Just pylons
and expect
on
to win. It's unbelievable.
So what do you got for your breakdown, Shane?
I'm kind of still work-shifting my numbers here, because you guys are making great points that I didn't think of for a lot of stuff. But, I had Vogel first off at 10. You got to give him – he's going to be fired. He's probably already got his stuff backed up, just waiting there by the door.
I don't think it's fair.
I think by the end of the day, he'll be on his way. So I don't know if they're waiting till after the game today, probably tomorrow.
Right.
But, yeah, no, it's kind of been written on the wall that and again, they could have had Ty Lue, who, again, is one of the best coaches, in the whole league. Just bizarre decision-making by everybody involved. But course, Vogel he's not going to not take the job. I mean, he did win a championship there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not all bad, but again, this is one of those things where the team shits the bed and then the coach is the first guy who kind of gets the brunt of it. So before I get into, like, the core of the team, I got to give, again, what I just said about the defense. Like, the rest of the team and their terrible defense, 15%. Because, like, this is just not all the superstars. Like, everybody around them, they're role players. Like, as a collective whole, has been awful.
Yeah.
Like, bringing in Melo to kind of, like, be that shooter. Like,
Yeah.
was he the right guy to bring in and just be, like, your clutch shooter again? This is just, like, LeBron and his banana boat crap where he's just like, I'm just going to go get my friends and,
Yeah.
you know, Dwight Howard and all these guys. Like, they're just not who they used to be. Like, again, you know, the 2014 Olympic team, yeah, great, okay, you know, that's 8 years ago. Like, that's not the same guys as it was, you know, when they're 30 years old. You know, they're 37, 38, 39. Like, they're just not going to cut it anymore.
I think the defensive side and the role players have to be led, right? You know, it's if your top player is lazy as shit and he's just not doing anything on defense, well, the role players aren't going to care.
Yeah, exactly.
If you got Jimmy Butler out there playing like a savage, going
Hustling.
crazy, hustling for every ball.
Yeah.
On both ends.
Well, everyone, it's infectious, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to me, the star players take the blame there as well.
Well, that goes back to the culture. Like,
Exactly,
if
yes.
if the dynamic of the team is set by its leaders, and you know, AD is hurt, LeBron's over there with a hoodie up and his glasses on, as stupid as that is,
Uninterested.
It's not a great look to just be sitting up there looking like you don't care. Like the game's over and he's over there talking to, like, I don't know,
Jay-Z or
yeah,
any
whoever.
random
You know,
person.
like, you know, Matt Stafford was there. You know, he's like, oh, I got to put on a show for you. Like, that's not what it's about. Like, you know, it just seems like the mindset of what they had to do just wasn't on the same page. Like, it's
for
just
sure.
Agreed.
bizarre. So now getting into the core players, I'll start with LeBron, I guess, because I will lump him in with management, as you said. So this is kind of all under one. I had him taking maintenance days and all this. Like, I get it more this year because he was playing like 40 minutes sometimes, and he is older. I do get it more this year, but there was times like the past couple of years where he was just like going on a road game and it's just like, nah, I'm not playing. And you know, like, a lot of people say, like, okay, especially for road teams, like, this may be their one chance to see him play, and he's just taking a random day off just because, you know. So I never liked that. Injuries, of course, to lump it in with the rest of the team. I'll get to AD in a minute. They're old. I mean, injuries are going to happen the more old you are. You're more prone to them if you're old. And that's just, again, just the building of the team.
That's sports, man.
Constructing of the roster. I mean, it's just not conducive to winning. So putting the team together as a whole, like, again, I don't understand how getting Westbrook, and I assume especially superstar players tend to have some sort of, like, communication with each other. Like, they're friends outside of the game. They have each other's numbers. I assume there was a conversation with Westbrook where you say, okay, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to win. You got to leave all this triple-double. I'm just going to stat pad. I'm just going to do all this. It's all me. Like, my usage rate is beyond the roof. Like, all this got to take a back seat, and we're trying to win. And it seems like that conversation was not had.
Yeah.
Like, the way he plays and his style still being that way, like, it's almost like they never communicated at all. They all came in on the first day and they're like, let's just go do us. Like,
Let's
that's
play.
Yeah, like that. Like, that's not necessarily where they want to be if they want to win. So I will, like I said, 30% there. Westbrook, because of his play, I mean, because of that style, it seems like he's stubborn or selfish or whatever word you want to use to describe the way he plays. It seems like it's for him or whatever. It's just not how you win games. Again, like, you could do this on the Wizards when you're the 13 seed and nobody cares and you want to fill the seats and all that. Sure, not here, not on this organization that's known for winning. LeBron's trying to win. AD's trying to establish himself as a team leader, superstar, and you're just crapping all over these guys. Now, getting to AD, he's 30 as well. I've got him right up on top. I'm about done with this guy.
I think the Lakers are almost done with him, too.
Yeah, like, they're already talking about should they move him, and they certainly should. Like, how much are you even going to get for him? Like, his stock is almost as low as it's going to get because, like, I mean, his confidence is certainly taking a hit. I mean, the guy, again, is just getting older and older. He's
Injured, flat out.
He's a walking bandage.
Yeah.
Like, he literally cannot stay healthy at all. Like, you're good if you get him for 50 games. Honestly, it's a win.
It's sad, man, because he's like, he can be one of the best players in the league. Like, he could be up there with Embiid and and like Jokic, like up around that level too. When he's
Dominant
like, fully
center.
healthy,
Yes.
yeah, amazing player. And it's sad to see that. I hate seeing injuries like that, but it's just the truth. Like,
And now, like, getting to our MVP level, what do you see from all of our candidates this year? They're big guys who can dominate the game, and like he can easily be on that list and should have been. And that's a big reason why I have him on the top of my percentage list here, because during the offseason, yes, you have LeBron. Yes, you're bringing Westbrook in. But there's big talk that, okay, LeBron's going to be the number 2 now. He's going to take a step back, and AD's really going to establish himself. He's got the monkey off his back of winning a championship.
Exactly.
Now he's going to take over. He's going to run this team. The team's going to go through him. And not only was he not there, but even when he did play, they're like, 20 and 30 or whatever record they are, like terrible. It's just the chemistry was not there. This was his year to take over, and injuries aside, they're not playing well. And then, of course, you had to factor that in because that's his biggest issue.
Yep.
So he gets the biggest part of it for me, just because it was supposed to be his year to take over, being the MVP conversation, and he's just not. The team was awful. I mean, again, the play-in tournament is set up to have these type teams get there. Like, it's one thing if you're the 9 seed and don't make it, okay, that's disappointing. That's really bad. You can't make it to the 10. And not
come on.
Their record from the All-Star game was 4-20.
It was
terrible.
It was awful. They did not have to run roughshod over teams to make it to where they were supposed to be. They just had to be okay.
And
that was it.
All these sorry matchups versus Oklahoma City, things like that. If they were to just close out those games, man, they'd be in the play-in right now.
Yeah.
And it's just things like that it's just completely dysfunctional with that franchise right now. And sad to see the Lakers not in there.
So we weren't scheduled to talk about this or anything in our meeting, but I just want to ask you guys, is there a move or two that you see that they can make to really put them where they need to be next year, or is it just a lost cause at this point, just a whole overhaul?
So let's try and break it down. You can trade Westbrook. What are you going to get? 2nd round pick, couple role players, 1 role player and a pick. The pick is future.
Yeah.
The role player is not going to be super impactful because no team is going to want to give up a good player to get back this turnover machine.
It's a very tricky situation because this contract is huge too.
Massive,
Yeah.
and you got to match it.
You gotta, and
Well, I feel like then the team that would take him on would be a Wizards or a really, really bad team.
I've been hearing Charlotte.
That's kind of just, oh boy, but again, they're on the rise. It
they
doesn't seem like, and yeah, they already got a fun, exciting team.
and they already got guards at the guard position, so it's
it don't, yeah,
Why
that don't make sense to me at all.
I wouldn't do it.
I've been hearing maybe Terry Rozier for Westbrook.
Yeah.
Boy, that's good for the Lakers.
Great for the Lakers, but
Yeah,
I don't
that
understand why Charlotte would do
I don't
it.
think
They're
that makes
building
sense.
something there.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they
And-
definitely had to have a core in place. I just feel like it would be those really, really bad teams like Oklahoma City. I know he's been there already, but it makes the most sense. They're kind of rebuilding. They need to fill seats while they're really
Make some money,
stocking
man.
up their roster. That's the kind of team, and that's trying to fill. So you're not I know in hockey there's a minimum salary cap. Is it the same thing in basketball?
Yeah.
You had to have so much of a payroll. Like that can fill out that while you're kind of establishing these rookies and bringing in a bunch of picks and or Houston but again he's already been on all these teams and probably has a bad relationship with a lot of
The
management.
thing about Charlotte is, Westbrook has 1 year left on his deal.
Yeah.
So does Charlotte expect to compete next year? This is the question. Are they just going to fill seats next year, and then the year after, $40 million come off their cap, and they're in free agency looking to get somebody? That's almost the advantage of getting Westbrook. So you got to look at that for certain teams as well.
So if they feel like they're 2 years away,
Yes.
rather than 1.
Yeah, and they can get a solid, maybe a couple free agents, $20 million apiece. Then it's almost like a backwards trade. You
I
know?
still feel like it's kind of like a long term thing. I still think giving up Terry Rozier in that deal, if that's the way they go with it, is still a negative.
And you're taking the ball out of LaMelo Ball's hands.
And
which
you
I
don't
like.
know for sure that you're going to attract those other free agents to fill in.
Exactly.
With it. It's risky for sure. I don't like it for them, but I mean, I
don't
can
know
see.
who
I
I
guess
like
if you look at it that way. Yeah, I don't know. At least especially
you know?
with the 10 seeds now having a chance to get into the playoffs, you really got to look at the bottom 5 of each conference and be like, okay, these are the teams that it makes the most sense for.
Yeah. And then, okay, so
It does limit people.
it's a potential role player and maybe a 2nd round pick for Russell, for Westbrook. Now let's look at Anthony Davis. So what are you going to get for Anthony Davis? Probably a first rounder, which is for the future for the Lakers. LeBron hates playing with young players. Is that a good move? You know, they're probably going to get a couple role players as well. Similar trade to maybe the James Harden trade or something like this, right? But because of all his injuries, this is what the Lakers team would look like. LeBron plus 3 extra role players plus potentially 2 rookies. And with the team they got there. I don't think it's any better.
I don't think it's good enough for that. I just don't think that they can really do that. Like, I think trading Davis is a different perspective. I think you can look at the contenders.
Yes.
That would go after him rather than like the Westbrook and those bottom teams. Like, which teams also don't want to give up draft picks, as you said. So you can almost, by giving Westbrook to a bad team, you can almost rule out getting a first round pick.
Yes.
Because that's what they're doing. Like, they're trying to stock picks and rebuild. Like, you're not going to give up like draft capital for a guy who's going to come in and just
be a 1-year rental.
Yeah, really. You're just there to fill place and payroll, really. So it don't make a whole lot of sense with him. So I think they're stuck with Westbrook. But in terms of Davis, you can certainly look at trading him to a contender.
But would a contender really want to break up
what I
their
mean.
dip?
That's also risky because, again, that's where you're getting the good role players because you're taking the role players from a good team for superstars. That makes the most sense for the Lakers. I think that's the way to go if you're going to go.
Yeah.
Although, if you're looking at it from the Lakers' perspective, you're giving away. I mean, LeBron's obviously pretty much screaming, "Hey, whoever drafts my son, I'm going to him."
Yeah.
So he's on his way out. Westbrook's got a shelf life. If not, they just want to get rid of him. AD's gone now. I mean,
God.
It's just a disaster. Like, I mean, of course, all these other older guys that they brought in are obviously gone. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, definitely doesn't seem like there's a clear answer in place at all.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so speaking of the big men and the MVPs we brought up a few minutes ago, we'll get into some of the awards now for most of the key NBA awards, races. So the MVP, rookie, defensive player, sixth man, most improved, and coach of the year is what we're going to look at. So we all kind of had a person that is at the top of the MVP race that we wanted to go into. So John's going to talk about the case for Giannis. Gudmund's going to talk about Embiid, and I will touch on Jokic. So we'll get into that first, and then we'll just give a brief mention to some of the other ones. We're all taking a separate person, as I said, for the MVP because really it's razor thin between the three of them, we think. And then the other ones, if we agree, we agree. Like, a lot of them could be pretty much a one-man race anyway. So
I've got a couple of them as locks.
Yeah, we can kind of touch some honorable mentions too, but I think a few of the other ones we'll agree on. So we'll get into the MVP first. John, what's your case for Giannis?
So, to me, in this entire race, the points, the rebounds, the assists, the field goals, it's all irrelevant because they all have a case for stats.
Right.
Embiid and Giannis are virtually identical in stats, and Jokic did something insane this year. 2,500 points, 1,000 rebounds, and over 500 assists. First player in the history of the game to do that.
Yep.
So, my argument for Giannis is that he's just straight up the best player in the league. You see, they played against the Sixers. What does he do? Gets a big bucket down the stretch. Embiid underneath the basket. No time left for the game winner. Giannis comes out of nowhere, blocks him, wins the game. Then against the Nets. Them three at the end of regulation. Scramble offense, really. Giannis comes back out to the three, buries the three, shows that the big man can make it, and takes over overtime. He missed 2 late free throws in overtime with 1:30 left, but with 4 seconds left, buried both. KD had a chance to win the game at the end of the fourth quarter and at the end of overtime. Couldn't do it. It's more or less a narrative for me. Giannis, I think he should be one of those players that get 3 MVPs in 4 years. You know? Yeah. I think he's up there with LeBron, MJ, Larry Bird, all these guys. He's just so dominant. And you'll see it in the playoffs. They'll make a run. They'll probably play Brooklyn again. Be a tight series, and it'll come down to the end where Giannis dominates. That's my case.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't not agree with everything you say. I mean,
no.
he's taken his game to another level again this year, and it doesn't make any sense because he does it every year. It's like, how far can this guy go?
How much better can you get? And he seems to add a piece to his game every year.
Yeah, it just seems like there's a certain bar, especially for a guy of his caliber, and then he just finds a way to just like take it over. And of course, having that championship now too, it's just again, it's the monkey off the back, right? Because that was always going to be his thing. Oh, he's one of these dominant big guys, but he can never do it in the playoffs, or he can never do this, never do that.
They always used to set up a wall on defense, right?
Yeah.
And well, now you surround him with shooters. He can make a mid-ranger. They can't do that anymore because it puts you in a terrible position as a defense.
And of course, like if you did look at a weakness of his game, it was his free throw shooting. And in last playoffs, with the counting and all the stuff getting in his head, and then of course, what does he do in Game 6 of the Finals in their clinching game? He was like 12 for 14 or something.
17 and 19.
17 and 19. That's just phenomenal. Like how he can take the weakest part of his game and he say, you know what, I'm just going to do it.
It's funny you mentioned the monkey off the back kind of analogy because it's funny how Giannis's mindset never changes. Like whether he had a championship or not, he's still going out and competing as hard as he can every single night, trying to get better. You look at Anthony Davis, and it seems like he took a step back. His mindset, you know what I mean? And it's sad to see, but like Giannis, prime example.
It's almost like another analogy with that is like when a player gets paid. It's almost like I've done what I need to do.
I'm a made man.
I'm a made man. Yeah, so it's like he kind of was satisfied. Of course, bubble championship too. It's not like it's not looked at as prestigious as Last year did have a bit of an asterisk on it too, I guess, but not nowhere near as bad as the bubble championship. It seemed like Davis was very content and settled with what he got, and then Giannis is just hungry.
Yeah, but as far as Embiid is concerned, his case for the MVP. I mean, he's going to be the scoring. He'll hold the scoring title after the season, and it's funny actually. Because I looked it up, he is going to be the first center to win the scoring title since Shaq in 2000.
Wow.
That's nuts.
Over 20 years.
But over the last 20 years, it's really shifted to perimeter scorers.
It has, right?
And now it's shifted back. Right?
I found that super impressive. Because I think Shaq won the MVP that year as well. Mm-hmm. And, man, that's something. It's nice to see the rise of the big men again. Like, we got 3 of the top MVP candidates are all big men.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's really nice to see, I like the whole guard play and, kind of shooting and stuff, but it's nice to see a bit of diversity in the league again. But yeah, I just feel like also with Embiid, just having to deal with Ben Simmons all season until he got traded and all that talk, like he as soon as the game's over, he'd have to go to the media and there'd be something about Ben Simmons. He'd be answering questions. His whole team would be answering questions. And for him to keep that morale within the team and bring them to the 3 seed, I mean, he's really took that group. And Tobias Harris, he's not playing as great this season. He really just took that group to another level as well. He took his game to another level. And even with James Harden back in the lineup, he started off pretty good for 5 games.
First 2 weeks.
Yeah, but then recently he's been going like 3 for 30, like shooting 25% and getting like 5 turnovers, just these ridiculous games.
15 points, 12 points.
Yeah, 13 points. Like just out of character games for James Harden, and he's still getting them to win, and he's still getting better. He was down to 29 points per game, and then now he's up to 30.6. So he took that from LeBron James, just reached out and grabbed it, said, "I'm winning this scoring title." He really can't. You can't go wrong, man, with this.
No. But the thing about Embiid was last year he was number 2.
Yes.
In MVP.
Yeah. Right.
And now this year, potentially number 2 again.
Well, I think
which to me
that's
would
kind
be
of a thing.
An argument for him, right?
That's the thing, right? Jokic won it last year. Giannis won it twice. It's almost one of those situations where you look at it and maybe the voters will be like, well, if it's one or the other, we'll give it to the guy who doesn't have it.
If they got that fatigue, as you see in some other sports, like as John said, if the narrative's there, really Embiid has a pretty good narrative. Yeah. He's dealing with a shithead off the court in Simmons, and then they trade him for a shithead on the court, which is James Harden. So it's like he's stuck with a thorn in his ass every time, and he just plays through. It's phenomenal.
That's right, man.
Now I'm biased. I had him in fantasy. Loved him.
Yeah,
he was great.
That's the dream.
It was fun to watch this year. I did pay more attention to him because of that reason. Just watching his game, again, like with these big men too, it's funny you say like all these big men are like taking over the league. It's good to see.
Yeah.
They can all shoot threes.
Yeah,
like they can all do it, right?
Yeah,
You know, so
and Embiid, he's shooting 37% from three too.
it's just phenomenal.
Like getting
like
up
these
to
big
like
guys.
almost 40%. It's like what the
There's
fuck?
almost not a weakness in any of their games.
It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Phenomenal. So getting into Jokic, one big thing I found from him, well, with all these guys, they really do have this. Like they play the game, right? They play the game. Like they're not hurt. They're not taking these maintenance days too much. Like they might have a ding here and there, but like they're not like Anthony Davis. Like so Jokic played 74 games.
Jokic plays every game.
Yeah, it's pretty good to see out of a superstar they're actually playing. So, of course, getting into the stat breakdown, I mean, you know, just from like 27 points, almost 14 rebounds, 8 assists, almost triple double. You know, a steal and a half a game, blocks.
Without Murray all year.
And all of those stats are career highs besides assists. So he's taken an MVP season and got better statistically. Now, crazy. A lot of that, of course, they did have injuries. Murray's gone. Porter Jr. was out. So he was kind of a one-man gang there this year. Not quite the team success as the other two. Of course, Giannis and Embiid were around the 2, 3 seed, 4 most of this season. Denver's the 6 right now, so they did have a bit of a fallback, but still a pretty respectable record. But what puts it in perspective for Denver as a team is they're 19.7 points per 100 possessions better with him than without. Last year they were 6.4. So on an MVP season to a potential MVP season, they got 13 points better per 100 possessions. With them, it's kind of like
That's crazy.
There's a stat in baseball called WAR.
Okay.
Wins above replacement.
Right.
So as a stat, as an individual person, we are this many wins better with you than without you.
Yeah. Then the guy we replaced.
It's very similar to that. Like his points per 100 possessions went from 6 to 19, just tripled.
Yeah.
Right. Again, as John mentioned, he's the first player in NBA history with 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, 500 assists. Nobody's ever come close to 500 assists. The other two, the points and rebounds, are pretty standard for a big man, but the assist number is just, and he's top 6 in each individual category of points, rebounds, and assists. So he's at least top 6 in all three. Too.
Doing everything.
Just doing absolutely everything. Again, he can 3-point shoot. His free throw percentage is very respectable for a non-shooter. And of course, he's had to overcome the injuries from a team standpoint, and they're still in a pretty decent spot going into the playoffs.
I feel like the injuries had a big part to play in that stat that you mentioned.
Yes,
from 6 points within the floor,
for sure,
up to 19.
Because if you take
nobody else,
if you take him away, along with the two that are gone, I mean,
there's no facilitators.
Obviously, it would skew that number for sure.
Yeah, that's right.
But overall, again, I mean, these guys are all phenomenal. All got a great case. I will say the voter fatigue is probably there, like I said, with Giannis and Jokic. Sure. So I do like Embiid's case just as good as anybody else. But if you're going purely off stats, I mean, can you split the award 3 ways?
I mean,
yeah, really.
Like it's such a flip a coin.
Yeah.
So we did have an honorable mention. John really liked the season out of Devon Booker, of course, all the success for Phoenix. So I'll let you touch on him.
He has just been under the radar. Just nobody mentioned this poor guy. You know. Their team, they're 8 games up on everyone in the Western Conference and 11 games up on the top seed in the East. Like, if this is an award that goes to team success, which it has been in recent years,
yeah, absolutely.
It should go to Devon Booker. He played a lot of the season without Chris Paul, and here he is, the top seed in the entire league by 8 games.
Yeah, man.
It's absolutely shocking that this guy gets no love, and I don't think he'll win MVP. But I think he should be in the conversation for that.
Yeah, he definitely should be.
You definitely see it a lot. Like, they take the best player on the best team.
Yeah.
And that's who wins it. Like, you see it's kind of a quarterback award in the NFL now where they take the quarterback of the best team or whatever. And so definitely, if you're going that way, I mean, he's really a shoo-in. Especially with Chris Paul being out for...
It's one of those things where it's like, you know, he scored, that 71-point game or 70-point
way
game.
Back in the day, yeah.
Like, he was, like, putting up numbers like that, having big games, but it wasn't leading to wins. You know, he's still missing the playoffs and stuff. But now he just seems like he's reached a point where he's so comfortable in the game, and you know,
with the leadership of Chris Paul.
Exactly. Yeah, just brought him to another level, and just taking games down the stretch, and burying shots at the right moments, and I mean, like you said, he should be in that conversation. It's just the monster stats that the guys are putting up, and it's a shame that he has to fly under the radar, but
that's how it goes.
I think it's really cool too how like not to paint Chris Paul as like super old, but like probably looks at him like a father figure on the court. He's just, and their styles really mesh well together because again, like Booker reminds me a lot of Klay Thompson about how he can just go off for these amount of points. He can really shoot well and get super hot. And Chris Paul's like, I'll pass you the ball 80 times in a row. I don't care.
Exactly.
Like they really play well off each other. So like when they're both healthy again, hopefully Chris Paul's back and they'll make a nice playoff run with two of them because I'd love to see Chris Paul win a championship this year. But I really like what he's done. I mean, obviously that helped with Chris Paul being out. He's really the guy now. Again, the best player on the best team.
The thing about Booker, like before, was he was expected to facilitate and score the ball.
Yeah.
But now he can just be that shooting guard, that straight up scorer.
Exactly.
While Chris Paul takes every, third, fourth, fifth possession to just get someone else a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Get somebody open, get a lob to Ayton inside.
Right.
Something easy, right? And Booker's just standing there waiting. If you give him the ball, he's lethal.
Yeah.
Right? Just get him off the ball, get him moving around, and that's why he has so much success right now.
Yeah. So we're going to move, again, kind of rapid fire these last couple. We might differ a little bit, but we'll get into rookie first. I had Evan Mobley, again, fancy guy, so, shameless plug to myself. I really, again, 68 games played, for the most part, stayed healthy. Really liked him. 15 points, 8 rebounds, 2.5 assists. Played 34 minutes a game as a rookie, so instant starter, instant impact. Of course, they were up around the 3 seed. He started right off the hop, really strong. Team success. Like I said, faded a little bit down the stretch there, but I really like the way he played.
Well, he also has a steal a game and 1.6 blocks per game.
Yeah.
Like, he's in conversation for potential defensive player of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, maybe 5 or 6 in that conversation. Mm-hmm. But for a rookie to be in that position, it's unbelievable.
Like I said, just instantly plug him in the lineup. Okay, you're our guy there. And, of course, with the depth they have at center, too, with more experienced guys or guys who could really say, okay, you got to work to earn that. He's really stepped in. I know there's some injuries, and that's why he's playing a bit more minutes-wise. But just phenomenal. I think it's his position to lose going into next year.
Yeah. Right. I'm torn. Like, Mobley, I feel like, is the leader.
Yeah.
But the guy that I really want to win it, Scotty Barnes.
Yeah, of course.
The Raps guy, right?
We are Canadian, just putting that out there.
He's been unbelievable too. And he's on the best team out of all these rookies.
Yes.
And he's contributing massively. So he's got 15.4 points a game, 8 rebounds a game, a steal and a block a game. Mm-hmm. He's played 73 games, the most of any of these rookies.
Yeah.
And he's on the best team, 48 and 33, the Raptors.
Yeah, that's right.
He's played a huge role in this young Raptors team and setting the tone defensively.
He's another guy who's super fun to watch too. Like some of the stuff he can do, like it's just just crazy shots and passes, and he's big and just dunks. And it's just he really got the whole package.
Right. Yeah. Kind of like a mini Giannis in a weird way.
Yeah,
plays extreme defense, and then at the rim he's just. Yeah.
Oddly enough, his game kind of reminds me of Siakam. Like I feel like it's kind of that Booker and Chris Paul, like he kind of has someone to look up to who plays well at what he kind of does.
Yeah.
But yeah, fun player to watch. Obviously, we're a little biased. We like watching the Raptors here.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with both of you. I had Scotty Barnes as well. Completely biased with Raptors. I think it's kind of one of those things where, for most rookies, they get drafted by the worst team. And a lot of these points they get are kind of empty calories. If you end up the worst team in the league, it's like, I know Cade Cunningham, he was like one of the top rookies as well. And like players like that, like Jalen Green, they're all averaging like 17 odd points, but they're not winning any games. And I feel like, the team success, that's probably the biggest thing for me is to come in, have an instant impact and be like, have a real role on the team.
Yeah.
Everything John mentioned, I'm going to have to give it to him.
Yeah, I do want to mention Cade too.
Yeah, no, definitely. That was like the number one guy, fade for Cade last year. That was the thing to really. But again, they're just not in a spot where we're not seeing his game really.
It's one of those things where if the stats are really close, anyways, I give it to the guy who's making a winning impact. So that's kind of the big difference.
Cade, 17.4 points a game, 6 assists a game, and 6 rebounds a game, plus a steal and a half every game.
Solid player.
Yeah,
great player.
Great piece for the Pistons.
Yeah, especially going forward.
So these last couple again, super quick. Defensive player, I had Miles Bridges, good team, steals, blocks, even for a smaller guy. Again, winning team. Phoenix has a pretty good defense. He's a big part of it. That's who I had.
Yeah, I got Marcus Smart from Boston. I mean, I feel like the success with Boston coming in the stretch, him being the motor of that team on defense.
He's the soul of that team.
Yeah, he's averaging almost 2 steals a game. I mean, and Boston's the second in defense in the whole league.
Yeah,
so
taking
I feel like,
charges.
and he's like, taking charges, diving for loose balls, and getting Steph Curry injured. And no, and just it's just that winning mentality of just like going out and defending, all the best players at all times. I gotta give him the edge because that's why Boston is as good as they are.
I don't feel like not necessarily like his game per se, but like I feel like he has that Draymond Green in him where he's just like
he does.
Like he's not the guy who's gonna put up a bunch of stats and a bunch of this that, but like if you take him away from that team, it's kind of like a piece of their heart came out.
He knows his role.
Yeah, like he's gonna accept his role for what it is and really go in and do it well. So definitely like
I get Giannis just because.
What a force.
Late in the game, he's the best player on the floor, and he always makes the biggest plays, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I watched the highlights for the finals, the Game 6 game, and every quarter, there was a massive Giannis swat. And he had 6 blocks in the game, plus 50 points.
That's crazy.
17 of 19 free throws. This guy just impacts the game, man. He's strong. If you get a big man on him in the post, he's D'ing him up. If he gets out on the perimeter, he can D up because he's 10 feet long. And he can jump to contest any shot from Steph Curry, whoever it is.
Embiid. And the regulation in that game, that was crazy block.
That was
one of the game. So
I got to give it to Giannis. He won it 2 years back. Same year he won MVP.
To think about how crazy that is, he could win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year. And go to the
finals MVP potentially.
Jordan, the only guy who ever did that.
Yeah,
Do
you feel that would affect I don't know how the voting works? If it's I assume it's all at the same time. Like you go in, it's like a poll when you're voting for government. You just MVP, defensive 6 man. Like do you all check them at the same time? Like because if you're picking them for MVP, do you then give them the same award, 2 awards? I feel like that might skew it a little bit.
I heard that some of the voters kind of get together the night before and talk about it.
Well, they get their ballots end of March, and they get it for 2 weeks, and then it has to be submitted by April 12th.
Okay.
Prior to the playing game.
Yeah. And I think they do kind of talk about it, so maybe that's something that, if you didn't give Giannis the MVP, so you said, all right, well.
I mean, he's that dominant, skipping defensive.
It could be a bit of groupthink in that sense too. Where
there are a lot of voters.
If everybody's like, well, Giannis, they're like, okay, Giannis,
exactly. Some pressure on them.
Yeah, so it could be a bit of that too. So
you'd like it to be unbiased, just straight. Sure. This is my vote. I don't care what anybody says. This is what I'm trying.
Definitely human instinct.
No collusion.
If you're talking to other people and everybody's telling you that's what it should be, I'm sure there's very different opinions.
Yeah, that's right.
And all that, but I've just figured again, the NFL, when me and John talked about it, if one player was getting the MVP, there's no chance to get offensive player, right, or defensive player of the year. They're not getting MVP as well.
No.
I feel like there's no way you would get 2.
Yeah.
So I just feel would it skew? He's definitely defensive player.
He did it 2 years ago.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not an unheard thing to do. So definitely a good show for that. So we'll get into 6 man of the year now. I had Tyler Hero. Honestly, I really didn't know a whole lot of people that stood out for this award. Miami is first in the East, so team success. 66 games played, only started 10.
He got 20 points a game.
So he was good. He was good to plug in. Yeah, that was the interesting thing. He had 20.7 points per game, second on the team, and only 0.7 behind Jimmy Butler for first. Yeah. So he was really leading the team in points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, consistent team success. First in the East. Close race, but he's certainly a good guy to plug in when they need to start. I thought he started anyways, to be completely honest with you. Yeah. So when I looked it up, I was like, wow, that's phenomenal. This is one thing about the NBA basketball. I just don't understand. Why does a player come off the bench and have 32.6 minutes, and then there's a guy who starts who has 12?
Yeah,
like just start the guy who's gonna play the 30 some odd minutes. Like, I don't know.
Maybe
why
it's something to do with get your bench player out against some second tier guys on the other team.
Oh, potentially, yeah.
You know, have the advantage like they did with Ginobili and
that's fair.
with Spurs. You know,
yeah.
It's like he could come. He could start and average 25.
I just never understood why teams did that. Like if you're gonna swap them out after 5 minutes and then just keep them in there all game, like why don't you just start with that?
Maybe it's just a softer matchup with the opposing team's bench.
Well, I'm thinking it could be a size thing too. Like if Miami want to put a bunch of bigger guys in first against, like especially the East, of course, a lot of big men, and then kind of sub them in against weaker.
I got Hero.
Same Hero.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move on to most improved. This is kind of subjective because I guess you can kind of look at it whatever way you want. I had Ja. I mean,
I got Ja too.
The guy's a superstar now, so I mean, it's kind of hard to take. You know, we're not saying he was bad last year or anything, but he's still emerging as a young guy who's coming in.
He was a rookie last year.
Yeah, so
20 points a game.
Wasn't it? This is his third year now.
What? No, last year was his rookie season, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
No, because they were in the play-in last year. I think they missed.
I feel like it's his third year too. Yeah.
Because he won Rookie of the Year, and Lonzo and them were in the year before, right? And same with Zion. Him and Zion got drafted the same year.
It's his third year. You're right.
Yeah.
So if you guys both got Ja, I actually went in a different direction on this one. Okay. I got Russell Westbrook.
Most approved.
Deproved.
No, I got Ja as well.
I mean, he went from 19 points per game last year to 27. His assist took a slight drop by 1, and his rebounds increased by 2. I mean, and the team,
and obviously, second in a pretty good Western Conference.
Yeah, yes, kind of one of those. There's Jordan Clarkson. Sorry,
Jordan Clarkson's another great.
We were saying like before
for 6 man.
Yeah, bro, 6 man. We were saying before we got on, me and Gudmund were talking about it, like he had a lot of that like favorite early in the year, and then I feel like it kind of faded off a little bit as the year went on. But just worth mentioning that he had a good year. Yeah. So lastly, now in the awards, we'll get into Coach of the Year. So I went with Monty Williams, not Monty Brown. I suck at these names, but yeah, Monty Williams. I mean, again, best team in the NBA by far. They didn't always have Chris Paul, of course, with injuries. 64 to 65 wins, depending on what they do today. 8 wins clear of all the West teams, and 11 to 12 wins clear of any East team. Like that is just phenomenal. Like if you're above 60 wins, you're a damn good team. So.
Yes. My pick, you can't go wrong with Monty Williams. No. Obviously, that's the standout pick. But I'm going to go Taylor Jenkins and the Grizzlies. Because they took a massive step forward this year.
Yep.
And they're one of the top defensive teams in the league, while being one of the top offensive teams in the league. Without Ja for 20-odd games, going 19-2 without him. Yeah. That's coaching, man, and that is impressive stuff.
I find you do see that, too, with some of these awards. Like, they do that in NFL, too. Like, I know Stefanski made it for the Browns, like, because they made the playoffs. Like, it's not always the best, like, the coach of the best team.
Bill could win it 100 times.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think that has a lot of it. It's just like a coach that comes in, takes over a team that's okay or not looking like they're going to do that good, and then they just overcome a little bit.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong. Yeah, but I'm going to take Monty Williams as well. It's crazy to think that they were 51 and 21 last year. Sorry. Or it must have been
31 and 31.
31, yeah. And to think that now they're even better. I think they had Chris Paul for the whole season last year. And to think now they have 64 wins, it's like they just took it to another level again. So it's like,
again, that's so hard too as a team that like has a good record, goes to the finals. Yeah. Beat a good Lakers team along the way. Like just had a great playoff run. Yeah. And then to improve off that, like you see that a lot. Like two teams make that, like Miami previous year, like in the bubble again, like not had the best year the year after, kind of a like.
They got swept by the Bucks, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, you see the Super Bowl hangover. You see that a lot in football. So I mean that kind of thing, finals hangover, and for them to improve, obviously, is a big thing.
I do also want to mention Billy Donovan here. And JP Bickerstaff for the Cavs.
Yep.
Billy Donovan for the Bulls. Both teams made great jumps this year, but I don't think they stand out.
They're not quite there. It seems like both are just a step
behind. All right, so we wanted to get into a playoff team analysis here. First off, we'll get into potential surprise playoff runs.
Yep.
Which we kind of said, if a team's expected to maybe lose in the first round and they actually make it to the second round, is that a surprise? Yeah, that's a surprise. Mm-hmm. If you think a team's going to make it to the semis and they actually make it to the finals, then that's a huge surprise as well. Yep. So, Shane, you start us off with this one.
I really like a certain team out of the West. I had a couple teams highlighted. I won't go too high into it, but Dallas is probably a team that I really like. I really like what they've done this year. Luke is probably one of my favorite players to watch. I really like what he can bring. They got a pretty good record, 51-30 currently. They're a game behind Golden State for the third seed, so I'm not sure if that can flip-flop at all today, but right now they're matched up against Utah. I think that's a winnable matchup for them. Should be a close series. I mean, it's the 4-5, so I mean you're playing probably the opponent that's closest to you.
Yeah.
They had a bit of success in the playoffs. They never won any series, but they're always competitive against the Clippers in the bubble. And I can't remember who they played last year. It might have been somebody along those lines again. But anyways, they're always scrappy, competitive. I think this might be the year to get over the hump, win a round. And being set up in the 4, they would probably play Phoenix, I believe, in the second round. So we'll see what they can do with that. I wouldn't favor them in that matchup, but I do like them to win the first round. Like I said, always scrappy, competitive. I'd give them a shot against Phoenix. Not much of one, but I do think it's definitely a chance that they can win there. Another team I had highlighted, I won't steal your guys' thunder if you do have any of these teams. Denver's kind of sneaky down there. Like, they're not looked at as a high competitive team in the West just because they are the 6th, so they're kind of buried down below some of the other teams that are highlighted up top. Definitely think they can make a run. Again, matched up with Golden State right now. They are tied with Utah, so they might end up being the 5 instead. But right now against Golden State not playing the best ball lately, so definitely a matchup that they can be competitive in. So you could see them as a lower tier seed to get better, advance a round or two. And in the East, pick your poison. All these teams are so close. I have Chicago as a team that could potentially pull an upset. Right now matched up against Boston, could be against Philly. Either of those teams. It could be a close matchup. I don't love their chances at going forward, but definitely of the teams that are there, I'd probably like them the best to be an active upset team. So those are teams I've highlighted that could make a potential run. How about you guys? Anything different?
What do you got? Good?
I kind of get a conditional kind of pick here for. It's not a surprise playoff run. It's more of a surprise playoff upset. I think of how it sits now, if the Toronto Raptors play Philly in the first round, I think that they could probably upset Philly.
I actually had them as well.
Did you?
One of my teams.
They're 3-1 versus Philly on the season. Who is that center on Philly? Is it Thibault?
He's Thibault, yeah.
Yeah, he's unvaccinated, so he can't play in Toronto. So that's a big thing too. So true. I guess really the big thing with this matchup is that it really depends on James Harden and how he plays. And he hasn't played well against the Raptors. He went 3 of 12 for 13 points versus the Raptors like last week or something. Just had a complete dud, and the Raptors beat him again. So if James Harden doesn't show up, I think with the Raps defense, they could probably beat the Sixers in 6 or 7. So that's a big one for me.
To me, the biggest thing for that series is, does Joel Embiid not stay aggressive late in games, and does he give it to James Harden and let James Harden take it over?
Right.
Because if that's the case, James Harden's going to choke like he always does, and the Raptors, they don't have that one superstar who's going to take it over at the end of the game. They do it by committing. Mm-hmm. So whoever's open is getting the ball, whether it's Van Vliet, Siakam, Scotty Barnes, OG, they just got a solid team of guys.
Cohesive unit.
Right. It's funny because somebody had mentioned that because Thibault was out versus the Raptors, where they played in Toronto, like, it's not a fair matchup or something. Van Vliet didn't play, and nor did OG, and they still beat him.
Yeah. So,
come on.
Yeah. I'm gonna say too that you guys didn't mention. I got the Clippers, so they could be potentially matched up with the Grizzlies in the first round. I think that's probably the best matchup for them.
Yeah.
Maybe Ja Morant misses a game.
I think so
with injury. Paul George is a phenomenal perimeter defensive player, and
Playoff
he
game.
matches up great with John Morant. Mm-hmm. And also, John Morant scores the most points in the paint in the entire league. The entire league. So Paul George not letting him get to his spot, making him take a few extra shots, from the perimeter. I think that would be and I thought this is what you were going to say, a conditional pick. Does Kawhi Leonard return? This is the question.
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if he doesn't play the first round and Paul George can out-duel John Morant, the Clippers are a great three-point shooting team. They're a great defensive team. Yeah. They do it by committee, really. Well, for the whole season. Now they got Paul George, their lead dog.
Their offense is much better with Paul George.
Yes. Well, scary.
Took a big dip when he went out.
Yeah.
And Reggie Jackson, huge shot maker.
Massive. He's been great this year. And their second round matchup would be with the Suns.
Yeah.
With Kawhi, I give him a serious shot.
Don't they not?
That's a rematch from last year, right?
Yeah.
Don't they not reseed? Because if so, the 2-7 would play to 3-6. Regardless.
I thought the top seed takes the lowest seed every time.
Yeah, I don't think they reseed though. I could be wrong on that, but
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's set up how it's set up. Because remember we did up a bracket a few years ago for the playoffs, all of us did.
Okay.
And somebody came back to me. It may have been Alan, and he was just like, "Yeah, I don't think they reseed."
Okay, so that would either lead
That would lead to your point though that they would play to 3-6. They would play a more favorable matchup than
Right,
Phoenix is what I was getting.
Okay.
At. So Kawhi came back for the
with
second
Kawhi-
second round against a worse opponent.
So
God, man.
basically,
yeah,
for their floor, first round exit.
of course.
The ceiling, conference finals.
Yeah.
Potentially, if Kawhi comes back second round, I feel like they can win.
And if they kind of get their stride going and get to the third round and potentially not play Phoenix if Phoenix gets upset, or if they do play Phoenix, at that point, do you still give them a shot?
Yeah.
It's hard. I know it's hard to say, but
yeah.
And another team that I wanted to mention, Golden State Warriors. Now,
yeah, they're being slept on a little bit.
that core, when it's together,
Yeah.
was the best team in NBA history.
Yeah.
73-9. This exact core.
Well, not
Klay Thompson,
KD.
Steph Curry.
Oh no, yeah, that was before he came. Yeah.
Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Now you got Wiggins, you got Jordan Poole. Well, Draymond Green playing at an elite defensive level here. They're battling a couple injuries, but if they're healthy, they are absolutely lethal.
And Wiseman shut down, right?
And Wiseman shut down.
He's not. Yeah, that's unfortunate because that was kind of like their missing piece too. Just having that big man.
Yeah, Zaza Pachulia role.
Obviously,
Just dunk the damn
was never
ball,
a huge name, right? So to
Yeah.
have a first round pick that could have helped them was too bad.
JaVale McGee. Just get up there, dunk the ball, and
Yep.
get back on defense.
That's right.
They're probably going to play the Nuggets in the first round. I can see them lighting up and beating them in 5, just because Jokic is the only guy on the team.
Yeah.
There's no secondary scorer. It's just give it to Jokic in the center and see who's open, pass to him. If not, take a mid-ranger. He'll fight hard, but he won't be able to keep up with the barrage of three-pointers from Steph and Klay. Second round matchup could be Dallas, Memphis, or Utah. All teams led by a young player, a young guard, right? I just don't think they have the playoff experience to keep up with that team. 3-time champion. They've been through the ringer. And they've come out on top majority of the time,
Right.
So they could potentially do that. And their conference finals matchup potentially with the Suns. They always play the Suns hard. Chris Paul versus Steph Curry. Steph Curry wins that matchup majority of the time. So my floor for them is conference semifinals, and ceiling is NBA finals.
Yeah.
I actually had them as a letdown team just because they haven't been playing that well.
I was gonna lead into that. Yeah.
Injuries
sure.
have been a big
Yeah,
factor.
so I really if they can you're looking at it from a positive aspect, if they can get back to what they were, I'm just not sure, especially in the first round against the Jokic, who can just dominate, right? If they're not on their P's and Q's and really get back to what they need to do, good fundamental
And
basketball.
what's
good
going on with
shooting.
Steph Curry right now?
He should be back for the start of the playoffs.
Yeah.
It was his hand, I think.
It was his foot, wasn't it?
Or
Or it was his foot and then it was his hand?
I don't know.
It could be multiple.
Yeah, it could be.
It was a shooting hand too, right? So that was kind of the biggest thing for me. I put in Golden State as my letdown team.
So let's just get into it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So
now we're going to talk about potential letdown teams.
yeah,
And
so I had Golden State as one of my potential, let down teams just because of that matchup. And I was a bit unsure with Steph Curry and what he's going to look like when he comes back. I'm assuming, and it's like you said, they were the best team kind of ever assembled at one point. And there is that thing where you figure they're going to just flip a switch and turn it on, and then they can make a championship run. But, there's also the other part. I was looking at just them matched up with Denver this season, and they're 3-1. Or 1-3 against Denver, sorry. So they've only won one matchup against them.
I'd like to know what the lineups look
that's
like.
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I know they're... But then at the same time, and I guess it will get back to full strength, but I mean, even against him with still just Steph Curry and Dre, because Draymond played a lot of the first half of the season. So, it kind of is not really something you can look at, but at the same time, I could see Denver just popping off and maybe to get a few games on them and put them in a corner and then, a potential upset. But, I don't know. I would like to say that Golden State could win that, but I feel like if they lose that matchup, that's an extreme disappointment because of their championship ceiling, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, if you listen to Stephen A. this year, he's been all over them. Nobody's going to stop them besides maybe Phoenix. So, it really seems like his floor for them was, again, conference finals.
Yeah.
So, again, that's why I mentioned Wiseman, too. Do they have that big man that can stop Jokic? I know Jokic is probably going to get his anyway, so... But I just think he can take over potentially, if they're not fully where they need to be. So, I mean, you can flip a coin with that team, really. If they're good, I'm with you. They can absolutely go all the way.
yeah, that's right.
And if they're not, I mean, the West is so talented. I mean, it really don't matter who they play. It's probably going to be a tough matchup. There's definitely potential that Jokic just goes absolutely crazy, and they got no one inside to stop him.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's I did have them on my lower tier of teams that could be a letdown, though, just because I think there's probably a better chance that they kind of come together at the right time than there is that they just completely crap all over themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So of the three teams I had listed, they were the bottom. I kind of just threw them in there I guess we'll kind of see. It depends on that first round matchup, really.
Okay.
So a team I had from the East was Miami, just because there's a good chance that they get matched up against Brooklyn potentially.
I was thinking that too.
Now we all have Brooklyn as a 7, so that would not happen in this case. So I guess I should take it as they're playing whatever team does or Charlotte or Atlanta or Cleveland. Yeah. So, but definitely potential. I think even Cleveland would give them some sort of fits a little bit. I do think Miami would win that, but they are the first seed, and I think they're going to have a tough time. If not the first round, definitely the second round. That I think they may even be an underdog, as a number 1 seed.
Yeah.
So as a number 1 seed, who I, think is going to be in trouble at the second round at the very least, I got to put them there.
Yeah, it's tough, especially getting into the second round, man. It makes things.
You're really playing it. You're potentially the Bucks or
Boston.
Philly, Toronto.
I feel like it's just going to be
any of those
I
teams.
feel like it's going to be a
in trouble.
bloodbath. The second round is going to be an all-out war.
I think it's going to be, the East is really fun. I'm really looking forward to how they play. Another team I had from the East was Boston. I don't know. I'm just not fully sold on them. I know that they've been playing really, really good lately. So
Since New Year's, they're
I guess if you played a hot hand the way they've been playing, I don't know. For some reason, I'm just not sold on them. I know they have great players. Tatum's incredible. Brown's really good. I mean, Smart, obviously, that we said,
They lost
that
Robert
Draymond
Williams,
factor. They
Their
did,
center,
yeah.
Robert Williams.
Yeah. So, I don't know. For some reason, I just feel like there's better teams than them in the East. I feel like they're a little bit above the bridges with the seeding they're in right now. I guess we'll see. But, I'm not fully sold on Boston.
My pick may come as a surprise to you guys. I got the Milwaukee Bucks as a potential letdown. This matchup with Brooklyn has upset written all over it. Although I think Giannis is the best player in the world. He's slightly ahead of KD in my opinion versus, based on what he's done the last 2 years. It's absolutely unbelievable. But last year, let's not forget, these two teams went to Game 7. And it was decided by Kevin Durant's big toe. Okay? He hit the three-pointer to put him up with 2 seconds left. No, sorry, your foot was on the line. We're going to OT.
It was tied, yeah.
It went to OT, and of course Milwaukee pulled it out. But again, Kevin Durant was playing with James Harden, who was hobbled the entire series. Couldn't do anything. He averaged 17 points or less. Now he has Kyrie Irving. And Steph Curry, great shooter on the perimeter. I don't know if Harris is going to be back or not. He may make an appearance late in the series.
Yeah.
But look for Brooklyn to make a serious upset here against the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah, for sure. I was wondering, can we even consider Brooklyn a letdown team? You know what I mean? Because they were the odds-on paper to win or get to the
They're
finals.
still top 4 to win the finals right now.
I think they're second in the East. I think betting wise, I think only the Bucks are ahead of them.
That's what I mean. So if they lose,
and they might play in the first round.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If they lose in the first round,
that's a letdown for the Bucks.
Yeah.
Or for the Nets.
Yeah. Well, especially if they match up. Like, whoever loses that series, I think neither one of them expected to lose in the first round coming into this year.
Nobody would be happy with the first round.
And it sucks how it has to work out like that. Like, one of you have to go.
And it does suck because, like, as fun as the East is, like, it's Philly, Boston, Toronto, Miami. Like, I don't think any of us look if you put those teams against either one of Brooklyn or the Bucks, like, that team is probably the favorite, whoever it is, and it's just unfortunate that they have to play each other. Probably the best East Finals on paper.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want.
And we had to see it in the first round. Like, not had to see it. Like, we're not tortured. Like, that's a great first round series. Like,
but it's not as high stakes.
You'd like to see it on the biggest stage.
Yeah, that's right. 2 of the top players in the league going at it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, I think that sums up our podcast here, boys. What do you think? Is there any final notes you want to say, or?
No, I mean, we're just looking forward now to the first round. Next time we'll be back. I think the first round should be kicking off. I know
the 14th, I believe, starts.
The play-in now begins. I believe the West that is locked in, right? Is the West that's locked in?
Yep.
Yeah. So that is scheduled right now for Tuesday and Wednesday night. So I'm assuming they'll put one East game on Tuesday and one on Wednesday as well. So we'll probably be back. I don't know what day we'll probably be trying to do this every week, but the first round should be started by that point. I'm assuming probably by Thursday, Friday. The first round, like the playing teams might not play till Friday, but like I'm assuming that the 3-6, 2-7s might start on Thursday.
The 14th, yeah.
Okay, it's already scheduled. Yeah, you said it like 3 times. I'm just not listening. So yeah, that should be all kicked off and rolling. So next time we come at you, it should be in the game 3 or 4.
Yeah, sometime this week.
Sometime, so by next weekend, we should be rolling and have some games to analyze and go over. So, we'll definitely be doing that. We'll do one a week, I guess, same as football. Try to get this going. I don't know if we'll stick to Sundays now or what. We'll kind of.
I don't know. We're gonna have to talk about it.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Because do we want to make our picks before the playoffs start?
Yeah, that's right.
That would be best case scenario. Or next weekend we can come back and be mid-series and pick based on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we'll wrap it up there for now and come back to you sometime this week with some more playoff analysis, some concrete matchups, and we'll do some picks for playoffs. So that sounds good. So for now, for Shane and Gudmund and John, this is our first episode of the NBA Roundup podcast. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and we'll catch you again next week.
Peace out.